Grade 11 students, how you doing? This is my presentation, especially those living in Ethiopia, even outside of Ethiopia, who are attending class or taking this course through or via long distance. Okay, it is very important. I advise you. Earlier, I have uploaded a video regarding this chapter, Unit 1, in Amharic. Now, this is the first presentation in English. I will brief you in short, and it's possible for you just to download or take notes. And I would like to inform you that my presentation is not only for grade 11, I have already uploaded the unit 1 for grade 9, for grade 10, 11, this is the 11th grade, and for grade 12, the first chapter. Then I will continue presenting and uploading videos for unit 2. Then it goes on for unit 3, unit 4 to the end. I have already uploaded again the first chapter with challenging questions, just more than 50 with possible answers for each unit. I advise you, any comment you have, you can put it on the space given in the comment, on the comment space. Any question, any doubt, any briefing, much more briefing if you like, I'm ready. And before just taking you to the presentation, I would like to remind you it's very important. It's better to subscribe and share this video for whom you know, okay, nearby or far outside of Ethiopia. You can just share the link. Now, let me start. Okay, this is Unit 1, entitled History, Historiography, and Human Evolution. In the introduction, what's stated is this unit, it says, focus on two major historical issues. The first is the basic historical methodology, the methodology. It focuses what historiography is. Then the methodology referring to the sum total of rules, principles, procedures, and techniques applied in acquiring or transforming knowledge. This is a technique, methodology referred. This is as an introduction, not the main body of the lesson. Let me go to the next. The second focus is the current scientific knowledge on human origins, what the contemporaries, the nowadays generation do have currently, what the scientific knowledge we have on human origins, including the evolution of early human cultures. We shall have a detail on these two major historical issues. And it's advisable to identify the terms like historiography, what it means, objectivity, periodization, change and continuity, source hominids, primary source, and Neolithic revolution. Frequently, you will find all these about 8 terms, and more than this even. Okay, 1.1, history and historiography. This focus on the meaning and methods of studying history, on the meaning, okay? We will define what history is, what historiography is, the methods as well. that are very important key elements in the study of history. 111. History as an academic discipline. Here, discipline refers to subject matter. History, how do you understand the subject history as a subject matter, as an academic discipline? History is the study of past human actions, including thoughts, words, and deeds. Frequently, you have learned even at junior level what history is, just learning about the past, understanding the present situation, and forecasting the future. Okay? So, what are these? In the study of past human actions, what are those human actions? It includes thoughts. Okay, what people thought about, the words they used, what we call today the fashion of the day, we call it sometimes, okay? Words, deeds are changeable. Deeds meaning that achievements, practices done by ancient people. It also covers prehistory, not only history, it also covers prehistory, the period before writing began, around 4000 BC. You know, this is a very important key element. Starting from here, just let's fix. This is a period like 4000 BC. Human deeds, human thoughts, or performance practices in the past. Okay, before 4000 BC, we call it, or part of history that is study ancient human history, we call it prehistory. Pre meaning before history. After writing, after 4000 BC, we call it, or it is studied by history. So, what divides the two is the start of the art of writing. That was 4000 BC. Sometimes you may find it just with the addition of 2000 years after Christ. We are now approx in 2000 Gregorian calendar, we add 6000, so that becomes 6000 years ago. Or it can be like 6000 BP, before the present, that means. The term history comes from the Greek word historia. Yeah, historia or historia. It's called, the basic foundation term for this is historia. Both are in Greek language, no difference at all, which means inquiry or investigation, asking something to know the truth, okay, examination of something, going deep through the attempt or the effort to get the truth or real factual information. We have to ask, we have to investigate, make research as well. It is a critical and organized study based on evidence. I could say if there is no evidence, okay, it's very difficult to have a critical and organized study in history. No evidence does mean what? No history writing. As an academic field, history explores past events, present conditions, and possible features in areas like politics, economy, society, and technology. All these areas are being studied by history. History explores all these things. It includes, it studies change meaning that the old being replaced by the new one in terms of state formation, we can say. Continuity, something happened and it has continued its own continuity. Okay, and cause and effect. For instance, for the occurrence of happening of a given battle, it should have a cause. And once that battle was fought, at the end, it would have effect. So history studies the relationship, cause effect relationship over time, through time, that means. Historians ask questions like, yeah, what happened in the forefront? Just the questions that should come to the mind of historians are, what happened? It refers to the time of occurrence. Sorry, what happened, meaning that the kind of event, what had happened at some point, at some moments, what happened, what event happened. When it happened, it refers to time, how, the way that event occurred, the way we study the way, why, the reason, the cause, why, the cause, why something happened. We ask why, and what were the effects. Since we have why, there should be what? The effects. Why refers to cause and effects, consequence, the results of that occurrence of a given event. Studying history helps us learn from past achievements and avoid past mistakes. That is very important. Why we study history if we can't avoid past mistakes? So it helps us learn from past achievements and avoid not repeat past mistakes. It builds understanding of the present and can help predict the future. It's not only learning about the past, we are understanding the present as well in relation to the past. Something happened in the past. We are now to understand what is going on, the present situation. And then, on the basis of the past, as well as having the knowledge of the current situation of the present, we can possibly predict or forecast what would come in the future. History also strengthens group identity. What kind of families, what kind of family they are, of their tribe, their clan, their nationality, to which tribe they belong, weaken, what kind of knowledge, what kind of language they shared, identity, the communities as well, families, communities, nations. We can differentiate nations on the basis of their shared common values, the territory they shared. A nation could share same territory, a common language, common culture, a common psychological makeup, a common identity. So having these conditions within a nation, we can differentiate that nation from the other one, who have the nations who have another language, another commonly shared territory, language, it goes on. And trains our thinking through analysis of evidence. It trains, history trains. It gives us a skill, okay, to our thinking through analysis of evidence, how we could analyze evidence. It helps students develop problem-solving skills and respond wisely to current social changes. Right, we should jot down, list down the problems we have. Okay, the problems, it could be students' related life or within their compound or their own personal problems, it might be. So you identify first the problems, then you prioritize those problems, 1, 2, 3. Then you have to give solutions for each problems. So history could give us the skill how to tackle, how to bring a solution for the current social challenges. However, history can be misused. Yeah, it can be abused. Misused can be abused, okay, in a wrong way. Sometimes people select parts of the past to justify present agendas, okay, or judge the past using today's values. This leads to biased and inaccurate history. Firstly, since we assume us ourselves as people or individuals ready, persons ready to write on something, or when we start discussing with people, we have to be free of prejudice. We should not be biased. Okay? We have to look into the past situation actually as they were done by those people in the past, uh, even though those actions are related with the present situation, but we should not blame the current society, the current people, the contemporary. Okay, is very far. Something had happened done by those people in the past. Events have occurred positively or negatively. It was already done, past. What we must learn from the past is a very important thing in the present life. Okay, so history should not be misused, should not be biased, free of bias or prejudice. We should be free of such bias. Could be like religious bias, tribal bias, ethnic bias, religious bias. We should be free from that. Historical study depends heavily on source. No history can be written without done. Okay, sources are very important. Every historical statement must be supported by evidence from a reliable source. The unreliable ones should be scrutinized, checked, scrutinized, should be checked now and then. If they are not reliable, we should avoid them. Not important in writing history. Our source material should be reliable. Reliable meaning like a source that could tell us about the event of that happening. When something happened, our source should be like something that had been within the situation, within the time frame. Okay, it could be eyewitness, it could be ornaments, it could be coin. Those things should be at the time of that happening. These are reliable source. Interpretation of evidence is essential before writing history. In the first place, we should gather up data first. After having those data before writing history, we have to interpret. We have to have deep knowledge about those information or data. Misinterpretation leads to wrong or distorted historical conclusions, very clear, okay? We should have the knowledge about those evidence, about those facts. We should check them. And our interpretation should go in line to that fact. Otherwise, it might be misinterpreted. After understanding evidence, the next step is to present the facts clearly and effectively. Okay, this is very clear. Clearly, okay, in a clear way, others could understand our writings. The facts should be clearly set, written, and effectively. The quality of history depends on how well it is written and organized. Right. One thing, especially the written document, to say it has quality, okay, it should be written well and organized well in an attractive manner without missing any facts. It should be based on evidence. In the past, artistic or fictional styles were wrongly used in historical writing. What it says is sometimes people wrote just kind of material that looks like history but not actual history because it has a style of fictional style. That were wrong. Since the 9th century, evidence-based and readable historical writing is preferred. Objectivity is okay, evidence-based, starting from 9th century does mean it stretches the ranges from 1800 to 1899. Within any year within this range is said to be 9th century. Okay, since that time, the evidence-based and readable historical writing is preferred. Objectivity is another vital element. History should be unbiased and fact-based. Frequently, we mention accurate and truthful history helps people learn real lessons from the past. Objectivity means using a reliable source and presenting all relevant facts fairly, in a fair way. While full objectivity is impossible, it's impossible, okay, to have, okay, while full objectivity is impossible, historians must strive to reflect reality truthfully. Okay, it's very unusual to have a full objectivity, but historians must strive to reflect reality truthfully in a realistic way. History based on truth can guide society and prevent future mistakes. Something that is written on facts can guide us or can guide society and prevent future mistakes, not to repeat past mistakes. Knowing the past is a tool, an instrument to avoid, to remove, not to repeat past mistakes and not to do again. Rewriting history is common as new evidence emerges or understanding deepens. Rewriting history is common. Okay, something has been written. Now that something, that written document, again, can be rewritten by another person, which is common, it says, as a new evidence emerges or understanding, because our knowledge goes deep, our understanding currently, maybe with added knowledge, different from the past, but we can rewrite any history in a deeper manner, okay? Because we do have the potential to have evidence, new evidence, and our thinking deepen inside. Our critical thinking grows. or developed. History and other science. History different from natural science, which study natural science are science that study the physical world, the nature itself, all and everything, lifeless and with life. Every creature on earth is studied by natural science, be it chemistry or biology or physics. Using all this, use what? Experiments, lab, laboratories, and neutral in reporting. While science report or natural science report their findings, they are free of. They don't include their views. They simply stated in their report about the gains, the findings of their experiments. In contrast, meaning that opposite to this, history studies past human societies, not every creatures, but human societies related to humans, and often includes value judgments. There are things, okay, views from the historians to be added in that written documents. Despite their difference, both historians and scientists aim to discover truth. This is what both fighters shared in common: finding, discovering truth, exploring, discovering truth. The end result is getting truth, solve problems, yeah, and use evidence based methods. History, be there natural science or social science, their goal is discovering truth, solving problems, and using evidence based methods to reach conclusions. History is considered as science because it relies on systematic methods, reliable source. Systematic methods, there are rules and procedures how to study history, and any historian should depend on reliable source. It shares space with social science like sociology, anthropology, and economics. Yeah, historians study all aspects of human life. Okay, regarding this, sociology studies about society, anthropology about culture, about the human race, economics about the economic situation of a given nation. Within this, okay, framework, history has its own space inside those subjects. Historians study all aspects of human life, including economics, the economic aspect, history studies, historians study religion, culture. However, unlike social scientists, they rarely use experiments. Rarely. Minimal. Not completely, rarely. To the lowest extent, they use experiments, especially archaeologists could use experiments, samples, and theoretical models. Historiography is something else, okay? It's the study of how history is written. How? How history is written from the ancient past. How writers used to write history. The study of how history is written. It focuses on historical writing methods, historical, the past, research techniques, exploring techniques, and documentation, how they had organized their documents written. That was in the past. Through historical activity began, though historical activity began with early societies, organized historical study started with the invention of writing. as I have mentioned above. Okay, it's the invention of writing starts at about 4000 BC. Okay, historical study in an organized way started after starting from 4000 BC. The Greek historian Herodotus is known as the father of history for writing histories about the Greek-Persian wars. Okay, Persia and okay, I don't want to go in detail, but the Greeks were Greeks from Greece, Persians from the Middle East, what's called today Iran. There were wars fighting one another, and he wrote about the histories, how these wars occurred. Okay, he wrote it. Anyways, Herodotus is considered is known as the father of history. He was the starter of the history of the Western civilization. Thucydides, okay, who came after Herodotus, followed with a more critical, the same but more critical and factual account on the Peloponnesian War. This war was, as you know, a war that was fought between the two Greek competent city-states, Athens versus Sparta. He wrote about the wars between these two city-states. By the 1800s, history writing became more scholarly, okay, intellectually, we could say, knowledgeable, knowledge-based. Okay, so Leopold von Ranke, a German historian from the German school, laid the foundation for modern academic historiography. He could be considered as the founder of this historiography. Okay, modern, in the modern times. In the ancient times, there were, but he founded the modern academic historiography, emphasizing evidence and objectivity. Okay, what's historiography? It's the study of how history is written. We said it deals with historical research methods, research methods, writing techniques, and documentation. We said that above. While people have always remembered and shared past events, the organized and systematic study of history began with the rise of writing in early civilizations. That's clear. The organized and systematic study of history began. Yeah, no writing arts. If there was no any art to write, how could we expect organized or systematic study of history? Everything related to writing of history comes after the start of the art of writing. Western historical tradition began with the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, who wrote histories. We have discussed this. Okay, we have discussed it's repetitive. Over time, historical writing became more detailed and academic. Okay, historical writing over time, through time, from ancient to medieval, from medieval to modern times, historical writing became more detailed. It began to have depth and academic. In the 1800s, modern historical methods were developed as well, right? Leopold von Ranke from Germany is considered as the father of modern historiography, which because he focused on what? Accuracy. factual, primary source, and objectivity in writing history. These are the basic elements in writing modern historiography. Key elements in the study of history. What are these? Sources are the first. Okay, that comes first. Source. Okay, on which our writing is dependent. No history can be written without a reliable source. Every claim needs evidence, needs facts, interpretation, how we interpret the collected data, the collected information, understanding the meaning and origin of evidence, okay, the meaning of those facts, those evidence, and where they came from, their origin, the origin of evidence, the initial. It can, something might be written by different people, and a copy of that duplicated. Okay, that's something that it could be like the primary source could be presented in different forms, but we have to find the original one, the original. We have to study the origin of evidence. We have to go back where that evidence is found. Otherwise, it can be we can be misguided. So this meaning, understanding the meaning and origin of evidence is critical, very critical, very important, crucial to avoid errors. Presentation, how to we write, how can we present it to the readers? How can we write it? How can we put it on paper? The way facts are written affects the quality of history. Yeah. Romantic, fiction-like writing has been rejected in favor of clear, evidence-based writing because they missed facts. They are fiction-based. Romantic they are. It's very probable to assume these two as evidence-based. Just they could be presented to entertain people. Objectivity. History must be as truthful and unbiased as possible, right? Although full objectivity is difficult, historians must present events accurately and without distortion. It might be challenging to bring about full objectivity, to use our writing with full objectivity, but historians must present events accurately and without any distortion, okay, without any misuse of facts, distortion. Ethiopian history, okay, this is a topic, here is a topic, Ethiopian historiography. This is a topic, sorry. Ethiopia has a long tradition of historical writing that began in the 14th century that extends from 1300 to 1399 and continued until the early 20th century. What's early? Like this century covers from 1900 to 1999, okay, a difference of 100 years. And early meaning that like 1920s, 1910s, 1920s. Most of these writings were royal chronicles, court chronicles, we can say, palace chronicles, monarchical chronicles, by the order of monarchs. Okay, that's the writers of chronicles, we call them chroniclers. Chroniclers. Who wrote chronicles? are called chroniclers. Most of the time, they are guided by or ordered by the king or the emperor. They accompanied the emperor. Uh, there are as well documents out of this condition. There are documents. Individuals with their own initiation could write chronicles. They focusing on the achievements of emperors. These were, okay, more of the chronicles with the order of the royal, the monarchy, okay, focusing on the achievements of emperors, not about the achievements of the society. Hagiographies, saints by biographies, hagiographies, also contributed to recorded history, but both sources have limitations, problems, limitations, meaning errors, problems. They lacked something. Must be used carefully by historians. Hagiographies, they are not purely, that means, real, but they have facts, but with limitations. We have to be carefully state these things in a reasonable way. In everything, in writing history, the basic thing is scrutiny. Check, check now and then. The data, the sources, while we are writing, even if we use writing written documents, we have to scrutinize, check now and then. European interest in Ethiopian history began in the late 1600s, okay, led by Job Ludolf, a German historian who wrote the first modern history of Ethiopia, published in 1684. From the mid-9th century, more European scholars joined Ethiopian studies, and by the late 19th century, which is like 1890s, Ethiopian authors also began writing their own histories. Until the 1960s marked the establishment of IAS, Institute of Ethiopian Studies, an office within the Addis Ababa University, I know. Most historical studies focus on northern Ethiopia, right? This changed with the founding of the Institute of Ethiopian Studies, which I mentioned here, at Haile Selassie First University, lately called Addis Ababa University. Okay, accordingly, why the north region had advantage, okay, compared to the south. The northern region received more attention because, one, it had a written language, written script for record keeping, okay, language, scripts, language. Ancient Greek, Roman, and Arab writers had written about it. It's very important. Inaccessible. They couldn't go to the south because of many factors. So they wrote about the northern part of Ethiopia, the Greeks, Romans, Arab writers. Christian history sources were preserved in Egyptian Coptic Church archives. A lot about, even we miss something, for instance, concerning the history of the Punt state, we have only an archive document, only in Egyptian inscription. So the same is true. Christian history sources were preserved in Egyptian Coptic Church archives regarding the Christian source. The area provided many archaeological findings, including Afar, okay, but for archaeologists to go and find archaeological sites in the south, it was totally inaccessible that time, inaccessible. Okay, transportation was not convenient for them to read there. Okay, it's better to ask yourself, it's my own question, why was the history of the North deeply studied more than that of the South? You can predict, hypothesize your own view. You can. With regard to the South, why is the South not that much deeply studied like the North? Okay, why? The available, sorry, the available physical remains historical source are not yet studied. Okay, the region was penetrated by few Europeans only after the mid 9th century, after 1850, only after 1850. Okay, moreover, it has no written language. The North had, but this one had not, and no records of its past. There was lack of interest among scholars to use oral traditions until the 1960s. Oral traditions became important after this period. Prior to that, the only source material, the only historical source for historians to write on the history of a given people, a given society, were oral traditions, and historians or scholars not interested on the use of oral traditions because they consider them as not reliable. Other problems in the studies of Ethiopian history include, as in general, what Ethiopian history lacks, problem of Ethiopian history, in the studies of Ethiopian history, the problems are lack of comprehensiveness. This is to mean that it only focuses on the political aspect. Okay, the country's economic histories, social, cultural histories were thoroughly ignored about kings. So it didn't include all this. So we call this condition as lack of comprehensiveness. It was not comprehend all, all. It should be political, it should be economic, it should be social and cultural and blah blah. It should include all this. Lack of objectivity. This is related to the chronicles, most of which are biased to kings or the ruling class. Yeah, they try to just appreciate their kings, their bravery, their military talents. Okay, not about the people they talked. Chroniclers, okay, were much more, all in all, can be said, biased to the kings. Even the chroniclers were assigned and allowed to write not by their own interest. Okay, Theodros had his own chronicler, Johannes had his own chronicler in Ethiopian, related to Ethiopian history. Lack of sufficient knowledge on the political, social, and cultural realities of the country, even still today. That's our problem, historian problem, okay? How much of us, how many of us had or possess the fully, the, to what extent we knew of the Ethiopian society, the Ethiopian political or social cultural realities of our country. Very difficult. Okay? 113, source of history. One, primary source. Okay, we can divide source into two. Primary source are sources that have a direct relation, very important, to the events they describe. They should be closer, okay, direct relation to the events they describe. They come directly from the period under study and they are nearer in time and place to the event. If they are far, not primary. Primary sources are more reliable than secondary. Yeah, these include monuments. These are burial place, burial made of stone, it could be, burial sites, inscriptions written on stones, big stones, engraved, coins, Izana's coin can be, Menelik's coin we can use, but Menelik's coin cannot be a witness or a primary source for the reign of King Izana at the time of the Aksumite period or kingdom. Later, kings exchanged, okay, one king writing letters to the other one, the reply came from that emperor to this one, okay. These letters were reliable, okay. Diaries, okay, one king might have listing of a recording of the events he encountered day by day, personal information, diaries, memoirs. All these are primary source. Chronicles, documents of contacts and agreements as well. Chronicles, if scrutinized, checked, and proved that they are correct and reliable, we can assume them as primary source. Documents of contacts, agreements, right, between local kings, it could be nation to nation, government to government, and eyewitness accounts. Our our sayings, our meaning that we people living today could not be taken as an account for the past, like the time we can't say anything. We can say anything, but we are not eyewitness. I account for the time of the Zaman of Safand or Aksumite kingdom, okay? Eyewitness should be the account who lived that time, at that time, okay? Secondary sources are sources that do not have a direct relation or nearness to the event they describe. They are far. Most of them are historical reconstructions, like history books, because they are written by humans. Both primary and secondary source need critical evaluation. We have to check it, scrutiny, critical, deep evaluation. They need it. It doesn't mean just ignoring all his history books or or historical reconstructions. We should use them, but through critical evaluation. We have to check down, cross-check with other source materials because they are written, they were and they are still written by historians, by humans. Eyewitness information is a primary source, but the informants who recounts information from other source are secondary source. Okay, informants are not primary source. Oral traditions are information transmitted by word of mouth from generation to generation. In the absence of, in the absence of, sorry, in the absence of written source, they are highly useful for the study of the history illiterate society who could not read and write. That means who could not read and write. illiterate societies. So for these societies, they did have and they do have their own history, right? It's undeniable. They have history, but their history transmitted from generation to generation, from fathers to kids, from kids to grandkids, grandchildren. So, what option that his history writer could have? Only oral traditions, but here to cross-check it. Okay, one informant is not enough. 2, 3, 4 step. He should use steps. Okay, 114 periodization in history. How to periodize events in time frame. Basically, history is studied on the basis of periodization. That is, presenting past events according to their sequence in time, which is chronologically, that means. Okay? Sorry. Periodization means dividing the entire human past into shorter time-based periods. Time-based periods. And it should be shorter. This helps historians study, organize, and explain historical events more clearly. And this is my question for you, for students of grade 11. Which of these theories you assume is correct? It says why. This is the point I brought to you. Okay? There are three approaches, that divide the entire history of humankind into different periods based on three elements. One is human behavior. Based on the human behavior, one aspect, one approach. The other approach, the process of tool making, tool-based approach it is, and the other is economic-based approach. The first one is behavioral, human behavior. The second is tool making. The third is economic life. Let's divide this. Okay, this periodization starts with the beginning of upright movement of hominids about 2.5 million years BP, okay, before the present. Here it is. Here we have three approaches. One is the human behavior approach. Under this column, we have stage of development here, that. Okay, human behavior approach, those scholars who believe in periodizing human history, the history of humankind based on human behavior, they again divide that period into three. They divide the human past into three. One is savagery, the stage of savagery, almost humans like animals, like wild beasts, barbarous, a little bit better than civilization. And the time here is, that's my advice, to go to the text, or you can use my notes, brief notes, okay? 2.5 million to 8,000 before the present. This period is considered as savagery. The barbarous continued, 8,000 to 5,000 BP. Civilization meaning like the beginning equal to the Neolithic period, okay, civilization, 5,000 to the present, including the period of the age of industry. Anyways, this approach depends its periodization of humankind, the history of humankind, into three: savagery, barbarous, and civilization. Opposite to that, the other one, based on tool making approach. Humans used to produce tool, okay? It can be like stone tool, the crowd tool. It can be bronze tool. It can be iron tool, okay? And here it is, Stone Age, okay, from 2.5 million to 5,000 BP, Bronze Age. Abundantly, there was a use of bronze, much bronze, that means 5,000 to 4,000 BP. Iron Age, almost at the end of Mesolithic period and completely with the start of the Neolithic Age. Neolithic period, we have the Iron Age, 4,000 BP to the present, it says. The third one, the third approach is the human economic life approach, based on activity, economic activity, hunting and gathering. That's most history student textbook mainly uses this one, okay, like the case of grade 9 history. Hunting and gathering up to 8,000 BP. Farming and animal husbandry, 8,000 BP to 1750 AD. Farming starting from Neolithic Revolution. Animal husbandry, meaning that's pastoralism or taming animals, okay? Age of industry, the last one, 1750, the beginning of industrial revolution, that means to the present. Okay, here it says, the history of humankind is also generally divided into two major periods, prehistory and history. Without that, okay, the technique we have just gone through this prehistory period with a period known as the Stone Age, which lasted from 2.5 million up to 5,000 BP, prehistory, before the present, up to 5,000 before the present. When you minus 2,000 from Jesus to the present, 2,000, you minus 2,000, that is 3,000 BC. Okay? During this period, humankind used stone tools as instruments of labor. Based on the slow progress in producing stone tools, Stone Age is divided into the Old Stone Age, as we have discussed above, Middle Stone Age, Transitional, which is Mesolithic, and the New Stone Age, which is Neolithic. Although history refers to events after writing began, only a small portion is written, right, undeniable. Both written and unwritten parts are still considered history. Since writing began at different times worldwide, the divide between prehistory and history varies by region. It differs by region, varies by region. In European history, there are three common historical periods. Even in Ethiopia, the time actually differs one from the other. In European history, we can divide history of Europe into ancient, medieval, and modern. Ancient 1250 BC to 476, ending with the fall of Western Rome, right? West Roman Empire came to an end, okay, collapsed. Medieval from that time 476. This is more of roughly taken as 500 AD. This one 476, a matter of like 24 years gap. So we take it as 500 for convenience. 500 to 1500 medieval, from 1500 to the present modern history. Concerning African history, it's unusual to use ancient African history, medieval Africa. No, that's improper. So the correct one is pre-colonial African history before European rule. Africans did have their own empires, their own history, colonial during colonization period, and post-colonial meaning post-independence or after independence. This could be taken. It varies region to region. Something like Great Zimbabwe starts in 1080. It goes up to 1800. Pre-colonial African history, colonial African history from 1800 throughout the colonial period, because 1960 is taken as the year of Africa independence, so up to 1960. Post-colonial meaning post-1960. After 1960 to the present. Ethiopian history, ancient from 1000 BC, which is the time of the rise of Damats. Punt does not belong to us. It consists of the Horn of Africa, Somalia, Ethiopia, Djibouti, Eritrea. But our ancient historical state, typically the ancient state of Ethiopia was Damat, 1000 BC, to the rise to power of Yuknomlak, 1270. This is taken as ancient Ethiopian history, medieval, from Yuknomlak to the rise of Emperor Theodros to power, 1855. That is medieval. From the rise of Theodros to power, 1855 to the present, we used to say modern. Okay, thanks. That's all about. Next time I will join you with 1.2, origin of human beings. I am very glad for. Okay, it's my pleasure if you could just state your feelings, your any corrections on the comments, and beside that, don't miss prescribing and sharing my video. That is all about today's lesson. Okay, thank you for your patience. Okay.